So my name is Scott Habkirk. I am the CLIC program coordinator. I'm just going to share my PowerPoint presentation with you. Thank you for joining the first ever CLIC webinar. So you'll have to excuse me if I'm not too familiar with this technology. Okay, so you should see my the first slide of my PowerPoint presentation. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So I think for many of you, this may be your first or second step. Hopefully you have talked to your home university coordinator and worked out when the deadlines at your home university are, and now you're just interested in learning more. Let's see here. Seems some of you. I can hear myself. Yeah, my internet connection isn't the greatest for some strange reason, so there may be a bit of delay between when I switch slides, when I present slides, but you should all be seeing it. Okay, there we go. So it may blank out there for a second as I put it to full screen. So yeah, Canada Learning Initiative in China. Welcome. I think maybe first I should just address the elephant in the room, the current political tensions with China. And just from my perspective, I know that there's a lot of apprehension about going to China at the moment. But generally, as long as you obey the laws and you're respectful of their culture and their government, you are likely not to get into any trouble at all. And if anything, your experience there will show you the difference between the political conversation and the media and the everyday life of Chinese people there. So what is CLIC? CLIC started as an initiative to balance the number of Chinese students coming to Canada and the number of Canadian students going to China. We have a large number of Chinese students coming here, but not too many going there. Okay, maybe I'll make my slides smaller. Okay. Yeah, maybe it's just my internet connection. So there was some research that was done on why Canadians were not going to China or why not going abroad in general. And the biggest one was financial. So the University of Alberta was approached by the Chinese Ministry of Education to come up with a plan. And we said, students need money if they want to travel. A lot of Canadian students work in the summer. A lot of us pay for our own tuition. So they heard what we were saying and they offered us a really good deal. I'll get to that in a bit though. In general, why go to China? There's lots of options to go to. There's hundreds of countries you could go do an exchange or a summer program in. So why is China the best option? Besides the money. Canada-China relations are very important to Canada's future. China is Canada's second largest trading partner. So there's lots of potential for employment in that sector. There's been a few studies done by the Asia Pacific Institute that indicate that employers in Canada are looking for people who have a greater understanding of and experience with China. So there's a growing market for people to fill these positions that are China related. And then just for travel purposes, China has such an immensely deep culture. It's hard to fathom sometimes. Here in Canada, we think 100 years, 150 years is old, whereas there, that is relatively new. So it provides a very unique cultural experience. And China is at the forefront of a lot of interesting technologies. They're developing a lot of AI. They produce the largest amount of solar power in the world. So they're out of necessity and altruism. They're developing a lot of green technology, and there's various other things. Drones. They've got their first delivery drones in Shanghai now. Um, so there's all kinds of good reasons to go to China. But probably the most attractive reason is the money. So as a CLIC supported student, you get a travel grant from your home university. This varies depending on what your home university's policy is, but that's usually used to cover at least part of your flight. And then the Chinese Ministry of Education provides waived tuition for some of our summer programs. 3,000 yuan per month living stipend, so that's about $600 Canadian, which goes pretty far in China. Subsidized accommodations, but in most cases free accommodations in their your home university, or sorry, host university dormitory. Free medical insurance, and then waived application fees. So we've covered most of the costs for students. And we do also provide transfer credit for many of our summer programs. So there are two of your major obstacles to study abroad are covered through CLIC. One, the money, and two, the transfer credit. So the next question is, can I participate? The biggest criteria for participation is being a Canadian citizen. We have discussed trying to include permanent residents with the Ministry of Education, but they are adamant about Canadian citizens only. So that's the first qualification. But other than that, you can participate participate in CLIC through a wide variety of ways. So as long as you're a Canadian citizen and you're a student at one of our member universities, you're a full-time student at the time of your application. You can be an undergraduate student. You can do graduate studies. We have research internships. We cover co-ops, dual degrees, exchanges, and graduating students can also participate as long as they can receive a travel grant from their home university. So this depends entirely on your home university policy. Some universities, like the University of British Columbia, will continue to support their students 6 months after they graduate, while others will not. So if you're graduating soon, you want to talk to your home university about that. And here is a list of most of the programs that we have available. Now, not all of these may be available at your home university. So you want to visit our website, and we have a program finder there where you can put in your home university, and it will list all the programs that have been approved of for credit at your home university. So here's the extensive list, and you can go to our website to find out what's available at your home university. But if you see something that you're interested in and it isn't available at your home university, I would encourage you to talk to your home university CLIC operational contact. Now, that contact can also be found on our website on the contacts page. And we have had some success with students saying, hey, I want to take this program, but you haven't approved of it for transfer credit. And then the CLIC contact gets a hold of me. We work together with the Chinese university, and we get those programs approved of so that you can take them. So just because it's not listed doesn't necessarily mean it's not available. You might just have to bug your home university representative about that. And I will share this PowerPoint with everybody afterwards so you have it as a reference. Now, how to apply. We try to keep this as simple as possible, but because so many stakeholders are involved in CLIC, it can be a little complicated. So the first step is to apply through your home university. Once you've been approved of at your home university, then you will apply to the China Scholarship Council. I would encourage you to take a look at the China Scholarship Council application before you even hear about whether you're accepted by your home university. It does require a significant amount of documentation that you have to gather. So it's good to get a heads up about what you're going to need to fill out that China Scholarship Council application. But we do have a guide to help you along the way in filling out your China Scholarship application. And the guide that's available on our How to Apply page. If there's any difference in between what is in the CSE application and what is in the CLIC guide to the CSE application, always defer to the CLIC guide. The China Scholarship Council manages hundreds of programs, and CLIC is just one of them. So their online application is very generic and doesn't necessarily capture what CLIC requires as for the application. So the CLIC CSE application guide on our website is the comprehensive what is actually needed for the CSE application for CLIC. So please defer to that online guide that we have available on our website. But we worked through a lot of the details, and it should answer 99% of your questions. So once you've completed your CSE application, then I will confirm that with CSE and make sure there's no mistakes. And then in some cases, you will also have to apply to your host university. In other cases, I just send a list of students that are nominated. It really depends on who the host university is. But once your CSE application has been approved, we will send you a welcome to CLIC email, and that will include all the next steps, your medical insurance, information on your accommodations, and all the details. So that's really like our big first point of contact with you. And from there, we will guide you all the way to China, and even if needed, help you get your transcripts. Yeah, that's where the CLIC office kind of takes over. And my colleague Lee generally manages the student side of things. Yeah, so, but the CLIC website has been developed to be student-centered and to hopefully answer all the questions and facilitate your journey to China. Now, lastly, and in some ways most importantly, are the deadlines. So for your home university application, you need to check with them to see what theirs is, because each university tends to have different deadlines. Usually they're in February though, that much I know. Sometimes they are as early as the end of January though. And then as far as the China Scholarship Council application goes, for summer, fall exchanges, and full year exchanges, the deadline is March 6th. And for winter semester exchanges, or what the Chinese consider their spring semester exchanges, the deadline is October 10th. So don't miss those deadlines. Now, I know you might have a few questions, but please write them down and save them for the end. We have an alumni with us today, Corey, and she was going to give you a short presentation about her experience last summer taking the International Development Education Program in Shanghai at East China Normal University. She has to leave a bit early, so will do her presentation first, and then if you have any questions for me regarding anything in my presentation, you can ask me after that. So now I will hand you over to Corey.
Okay. I don't know if people can hear me. Can people hear me? No? Yes? Okay. I don't know.
I can
Okay,
hear
I see
you.
people typing. This is cool. I am in a public setting. I am still a university student, so I apologize for the noise, but I will just pull up my thing so you can see my screen. And then, so is that cool? Everyone can see that? Okay, cool. So yeah, as Scott said, I spent summer of 2018 in Asia, but I did spend 6 weeks in Shanghai. So I was studying at the East China Normal University, and it was my first time traveling to Asia and anywhere that was not kind of a westernized country. So the reason for doing that was I am a little bit behind on credits as one gets as a university student, and I wanted to do a summer course. But then I was thinking, why would I do a summer course if I could go to another country and get a credit? So I started looking at funded scholarships because everyone likes free money to go places, and I stumbled upon CLIC. And I don't know if anyone's seen, I've written a testimonial before, and yeah, I just thought that China would be a good way to get out of my comfort zone. So um, let's see, I went to East China Normal University in Shanghai, which is, I'm in Ottawa right now, which is the capital city, which is less than 1 million people. So Shanghai was about, I don't even know the population, but it was a scary amount of people. Um, and I did take part in the educational internship program because I have a history working with kids. So this was a lake by my campus where I got to spend some time because I'm not a city person. So I was just um, able to go to this little oasis, but as you can see, we were surrounded by cities. So I will get to the part about culture shock a little bit later on. But this was a really nice happening. There's actually a bunch of old people coming to take pictures of the sunset, and then I started talking to them, so that's there. I actually don't know if anyone can still hear me. I'm just gonna see the group and make sure you guys are still good because I feel like I'm just chatting. Can you still hear me? Yes? Everything's okay? Okay, great. Okay, that's good. Thanks, guys. I just feel like I'm just talking to my computer. So that's me. So China was a very interesting cultural experience for me because like I said, have never been anywhere outside of Europe or North America. So what really caught my attention was like the history of it because there are buildings, as you can see on the picture on the left, that have been around for centuries and centuries, and then the picture on the right, there's buildings that are going up left, right, and center. So it was just a very beautiful juxtaposition to be exposed to. Um, and there was always something to be doing. You could be going exploring, just walking down the road. Um, and that's that. So getting back to the program that I was a part of. So I did take part in the educational internship program. So how that worked was we spent about 3 weeks going to school at the East China Normal University, but what that comprised of essentially was going to class 2 days a week for about 3 hours a day. So much less course load than you would be doing if you were doing a normal summer course. And then we had 1 day a week doing cultural activities, which I will get to later on. But the main part of this program was for us to learn about the different educational practices going on in China. So for 1 week, actually, we got to go to rural China. And in this picture, you can see that we are actually hanging out with Chinese high school students. And we got to do kind of like a volunteer service teaching English. And that was really humbling because we step into this high school that was like 4,000 people, which is pretty much half of what my hometown was growing up. And we actually got invited to spend time in their classrooms teaching them for 40 minutes apiece. We got to make them laugh sometimes. Um, And you just kind of got more of an appreciation for a culture that's not your own by going into these moments where you're not just in a classroom. So I'm not sure what other people are interested in for programs, but I highly recommend this one because you got to get out of the classroom and go into another classroom, but you were actually teaching for that one. Um, so this was when we were in Shanghai, and so we got to spend time with younger children, with just to get a better idea of the education system. So I'm sure that whatever program you guys do get a chance to take part in, that you will be going to classes, but you will also get a chance to kind of learn more practical things about the country, considering you are traveling all that way to go to China. And then, so this was my host family. So it was really, really a beautiful experience because we got to spend 4 days with this family. And they hosted you and they wanted to show you to their whole family. And so you're kind of going beyond the experience of just traveler at this point. You're getting an authentic experience and you're kind of setting down roots, which personally as a traveler, I like to feel like I'm not as much of a tourist, which is hard to do considering we are visiting another country. Um, but yeah, so this was a really big highlight because of the personal experience that you get, and you like I still have my Mei Mei's little sister in Chinese. I still have her address. I still can reach out to her. So I think for them, especially having a contact back in Canada is really cool because you're getting the cross cultural experience, and you can still bring stuff home with you. So then, as for the rest of the program, I said that we go to class 2 days a week, and we took some notes, but a lot of it was discussion based. So I'm not sure what other people will be going into, but don't expect to have like this super hardcore, summer course, like you have to type and work and do all this stuff. It is fairly hands on. They want to have discussion. The teachers want to learn about what's going on in Canada as well. But then we got to do cultural experiences. So we each week we had calligraphy classes. This is us doing Tai Chi. We had Kung Fu. And this wasn't part of the school, but just in a little city north of Shanghai. Actually, it's still considered Shanghai. We got to, my friend and I went and we got like a special tea ceremony because tea is really big there. So we were just kind of curious about what was, off the beaten path. So the good thing about this program is that you get a lot of free time, because I guess they recognize that you're there for such a short amount of time. I believe most programs are only a month. So you can spend some time, figuring out what China has to offer you other than just going to school, because that's a whole idea of this liaison between Canada and China is that we have so many Chinese students coming here and they're getting these authentic experiences without the Canadian students going there. So I think just being open to what China has to offer is a really big part of the activity and why the program's so special. Um, so going on to more cultural things, so a big part of my hesitation for going to China was that I am vegetarian, if not vegan. I don't eat a lot of animal products, and I'm also celiac. So I had like a lot of health things going on, but I was like, you know what? I'm still gonna go, and I'm just gonna learn how to tell people I'm vegetarian, and that actually worked out pretty well. Obviously, sometimes you'd be like, no, I want tofu, and they're like, here's some tofu with some meat in it. So some of you might have that problem, but it's really easy to work around it, and you can kind of like point to things in your class, in your university dining hall. So this meal was actually a meal that I shared with the family's not there, never mind. So the family, they invited their neighbors and we had a big feast, and that was really nice. And a really great part about China is that they're really into sharing and being communal. So this is not a traditional way of eating. Most places we went to eat actually had a circular table where we could each just take little morsels of what we wanted to eat. And for me, that was really special because you kind of get a sense of the historical aspect because they did have a very they had the communist regime, but just the overall principle of like it's not as individual there. We're not all ordering individual meals and just eating. We get to share what each other are tasting and what each other are eating, and we can talk about it and we can learn about it. So every single thing you're doing, you're learning. You're learning about how they make it, why it's important, and what cultural practices they have. So I have no idea what any of this food is, but it was delicious. And as Scott was saying, you guys will be getting some fairly generous scholarships just from the Chinese Scholarship Council, as well as from your home institution, and that will stretch you pretty far while you're in China. I think most meals ran about like $5 to $7 tops, like for a fancy meal. So I know me personally, if I was to have stayed in Ottawa for the summer and have taken a summer course, it actually would have cost more money than going all the way across the ocean to China. So that's pretty ironic. So this is me enjoying food. You'll just Eating is a big part of traveling, let's be honest. But then the next thing is going out and exploring, like I'd already said. So the cultural environment and the sociocultural environment around Shanghai was very busy. It's very metropolis. So for me, that was a little overwhelming. But everyone in Shanghai was fairly friendly and they spoke some English. I do recommend those getting some basics in Mandarin because we only had one Mandarin class. Um, so I took it upon myself that whenever I heard someone say something, I'd like be like, "What does that mean? Can you teach me?" Um, and if you can get an app, I can recommend some apps afterwards. I can type them in. I'll have to pull them up because I forget. Um, just to brush up on Mandarin. Um, so yeah, so my first impression of China was that it was very big and noisy, and there was a lot of stuff going on, people zigzagging everywhere, and people sometimes can look at you a little oddly. I think they're still opening their doors, so they're still not as used to say we are to cultural diversity and having people of different ethnicities and races come in, especially into the rural areas. But as for Shanghai, it was really, really diverse, and you could definitely stop someone on the street and just ask them if you need to know where you're going. um, Also, to know where you're going, I would recommend downloading Baidu Maps and or getting a VPN before going, because a lot of our traditional applications like Facebook, Google, Instagram, they're all blocked there. And downloading WeChat. So I will write these things down after, and then you guys can have them. So, some of the questions that I was asked to answer are some of my most memorable experiences in China, and a lot of them were spending time with the children in school. But then the rest was just going out and exploring on my own. So, I did spend 2 weeks after the school program going back to Yunnan, which is in the southwestern part of China, and there was like beautiful, beautiful nature, as you can see. Um, and it just kind of blew my mind because, as I said, my first overall experiences of China was like, wow, there's so much food and noise, and there's just people everywhere. I don't understand the language. I can't read the signs. Like the rules of the street are crazy. I highly recommend not jaywalking unless if you're a professional. And even if you do have crosswalk signs, be very careful. They are it's just very different from what you might be used to. But it's also recognizing that there's still aspects of beauty wherever you look. So I was really keen on going mountain climbing there and hiking. And so I stayed in that little village right there for about a week, just north of Yunnan. We got to go rock climbing. So whatever your interests are, you might be able to find them in China, which might help you with perhaps feeling of homesickness or just feeling like parts of you are still there. And if you're not a rock climber or you're not into art or whatever, you may be trying new things so that you can say, oh well, while I was in China I did these crazy things. So this is a picture of me and my boyfriend who was doing an internship there, and then three Chinese people that have never actually been on a sailboat before. So that was a really exciting experience for everyone. We're just having new experiences all the time. And this was so I was in a group of students with only 7 other students. So my whole summer school experience in China was just with 8 students, which was really great because you get to have more intimate conversations in the classroom, and you can, create bonds with people that are coming from all over Canada. And you might make some good friends like this one. So they do have cows roaming around on top of mountains. So that's the end of my presentation, but I'm just going to quickly answer the last few questions that Lee had asked me. So yeah, so she asked for my memorable experiences, but I'd have to say just the entire summer, like going to Asia. I had spent some time in Taiwan before and Malaysia after just to get more bang for my buck. I figured I was already across the ocean. I might as well see what else is there, and just being able to compare, those cultures to each other, but also Canada's culture to that. Um, and the kissing cows is a big experience. I highly recommend. Um, and so, what did I learn from the CLIC program? So, I learned like a lot of personal lessons, being more patient with myself because I'd get really frustrated not being able to talk with people because I am very outgoing. And it's really difficult sometimes to feel like you're surrounded by people, which you will be because China is very big, and not being able to communicate with them. So I found ways to, find ways to deal with my emotions. I kept a journal, I read, I talked to people that were in my program, like the coordinators. I got them to kind of help me learn a little bit more Chinese so that when I was actually out in the world, I could carry on like a little bit of a conversation. I could at least get directions to where the best vegetarian food was, which is, beneficial. Um, yeah, so I just think like overall the CLIC program just teaches you that we all kind of crave similar things. We crave community, we crave good food, we want shared experiences, laughter, exploration. And it's just recognizing the differences we have. In Canada, a lot of us are a lot more liberal. And in China, I really got to see just how strict the education system is on these young students. And we would complain, oh, I don't want to go to school tomorrow, I'm tired. But these kids were waking up at 7 a.m. and going to finishing school at 10 p.m. So that for me was a personal big eye opener, just seeing the liberal lives that we can have here in China and just not taking that for granted. Um, and then how did I engage with China after I got back? So I still talk to a few Chinese people that live in China, and they say if I ever want to go back there, I can go back, which is great. But I also got the chance to speak on a budget board. So Universities Canada is this program. They're I don't know, a company, I guess. They're a board of members that are trying to put more pressure on the federal government to create a larger budget so that students like us can go abroad more easily without the financial burden. So I was really eager to go there and say that because of the scholarship through CLIC that I was able to travel. I am a low income student, so I don't think it's necessary for people to have financial barriers when there are all these opportunities out there. You just kind of have to seek them. And I don't have any plans to go back to China in the near future, but if I ever had it knock on my door again, I definitely would. Um, and so some suggestions I have for you guys are, like I said, learn as much Mandarin as possible. So whether that be before you go or finding some friends on campus, like reaching out of your bubble that is Canada. It's really nice to have people by your side that do speak your language, but I really, really urge you guys to challenge yourselves to go out and interact with the locals because that's why you're there. You want to be able to feel like you're integrating there properly and that you have someone who can translate some things for you better than Google Translate or Baidu Translate. And plus, the locals will show you like what an authentic experience is. They'll take you to the little holes in the wall shops. They'll teach you how to order proper foods or how to drink tea properly. Like there's so many little lessons that you can learn, but that you would never get to do if you don't put yourself out there. So I really highly recommend putting yourself out there in social circles. Um, and yeah, go to rural China if you can. Like everyone's really big into cities and like, yeah, let's go to the mall. But I mean, there's malls everywhere. But being able to see a side of China that you might not have thought existed is like my number one recommendation. My number two recommendation is if you can, and because you're flying long ways away, I personally bought carbon offsets because I am an environmentalist as well. So if you are flying these long ways, I don't know where people are coming from financially, but you can purchase carbon offsets, which are useful because climate change is happening, and you can see that a lot in China. People were hesitant about air pollution and stuff, but where I was, there wasn't any. So fingers crossed where you guys go, you guys have some good opportunities to get fresh air. But yeah, I just feel like I'm rambling a lot now, but I keep smiling because China was a really big spontaneous decision on my behalf. I don't know if you guys were like your whole life wanting to go to China or this just stumbled upon it, but I wish you guys the best of luck in this, especially with the Chinese scholarship. It might give you some troubles, but you just be patient with yourselves and the system, and it'll all work out. And yeah, thanks so much, Scott, and the CLIC program. I'm gonna close out of that because that's that. So if you guys have questions, I can stay around for like 5 minutes. You can type them, or if you want to just laugh at my pictures, that's fine too. But thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much for the presentation, Corey. I know you have to leave pretty soon, so maybe if any of the participants have questions, they can email them to Lee and we can follow up with you. So you can get on with your busy day.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, if anybody has questions for either me or Corey while she's here for 4 more minutes, please feel free to type them in the chat window and we'll do our best to answer them.
Hmm. These
I know that to respond to your question, Aiden, I know that the Chinese government is getting more strict with the visas that students get. They do strongly prefer that you get an X1 or an X2 visa, depending on how long you're staying. But we at the CLIC office do what we can to facilitate you getting your visa. And Corey did mention that she was able to travel after her visa. So even though you have an X2 study visa, you can usually travel for a certain amount of time before or after. And to answer your question, Matthew, like I said, they do prefer that you get a study visa. You may get in trouble if you go in on a tourist visa and they find out that you're actually studying. And yeah, this is not a time to try and bend the rules. Yes, you are correct, Matthew. That is a relatively new policy. And it goes both ways, actually. We have a group of Chinese administrators coming to Canada, and they also have to get fingerprinted by the Canadian consulate. It depends, Aiden, if you're applying for a competitive program. Up until this year, our programs haven't been competitive, but moving forward, we have a lot more Canadian universities and a lot more students who are interested. So our preference is to give scholarships to students who have no experience. But if you wanted to contact me about the particular program that you're interested in, I could give you more information about how competitive that is. Thanks again, Corey.
Thank you.
To answer your question, Alina, if you are looking to go for the current winter semester, the deadline was back in October, but you can apply for fall or full year exchanges starting in September. And the application deadline is March 6th for that. To answer your question, Andrea, the visa application can take as short as 2 days if you get it rushed. The longest that it takes is 10 days if you mail it in. If you go to the consulate with all your paperwork, then then it takes 3 to 4 days. And actually, I made a note. We're going to do a little bit of research into this new fingerprinting process. So I'm not entirely sure whether you have to go to the consulate to get your fingerprints done. I think that's the case. So you may not be able to mail in your application anymore. Well, does anybody have any more questions? If you do and they come up later, please feel free to contact us through our website. We have on the header and the footer of our website the email address we use to take in all inquiries. That's info@clicstudyinchina.com. We'll be happy to answer your questions and guide you through the process. But if there aren't any more questions, then I'll just thank you all for joining us and hope that you stay warm and watch out for this polar vortex. Oh, I see another question here. Oh no, yeah. I answered that one. Okay, everybody take care, stay warm, and like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. We'll be happy to answer them. Take care.